Alright, so we're going to do some more puzzles, more custom puzzles, and I think we'll stick with the same rating range for today. And if things are not so instructive, then we'll think about raising that rating range for a future day. Alright, first puzzle. Well, there are some clear checkmate themes here, just considering the position of Black's king and our heavy pieces here. So the first move that I want to consider is some sacrifice idea and then crash through and checkmate. Of course, also this is a strong consideration as well. It's nearly as strong, seeing as it comes with the checkmate threat. But not only is this check, when we take here, it seems that Black might be able to have some sort of defense set up. So let's calculate the forcing line. Takes, takes. Then our option basically is, do we add in this extra rook, or do we move this bishop somewhere, possibly even taking Black's rook? So let's calculate add in the extra piece first. Actually, no. Let's calculate the most forcing one first, and then maybe if this isn't working, we can have an argument for inserting this move to change things up a little. So this is a double check. Being a double check, Black pretty much has to take the bishop. Any other move, and it seems like there'll be some sort of queen checkmate. This rook cutting off the other file. So we have here, 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 here. And then do we have follow-up? We do have follow-up actually with queen g4. If the king were to step over, it seems like this will be a checkmate. So the king can't step over. They'll have to interpose, check. And then we have to bring in our rook somehow. This bishop is now pinned on this square, so maybe we can bring it to f6. If king steps back, we can take. It actually looks like this is going to be mating. So here, 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 bishop here, rook check, because if the king comes back, instead of taking the bishop right away, we can start by playing queen check. Bishop blocks, we have queen checkmate on h6, so it kind of transposes to king g7, queen takes. This just looks like it's winning, so nothing else to calculate at this point. And we have a checkmate. And that's why you calculate the forcing stuff first. I could have wasted some time seeing if it was useful to insert this rook, and ended up being completely unnecessary. So let's move on to the next one. Again, we have some strong themes of weak king. We also have some strong themes of discovered attack on the queen, although the king currently resides on a light square. If in the next couple moves we can drag that king out to a dark square, maybe we can win the queen. Also, that theme might just be entirely unnecessary, seeing as the king is actually just very weak. It's more likely that the king gets dragged here and then this bishop knight combo make a double check. If the queen is gone, then we can't just give a single check or with the bishop. It will have to be double check, because this queen will be able to take her bishop with check otherwise. So let's look at that. This is pretty strong first move. Rook blocking is just not changing the position at all. It's just an extra move. So really the king has to move. It's one of two squares. If it comes to g7, we have a checkmate. This knight is protected. So maybe this bishop-knight theme is actually unnecessary. So king comes here. There's no check or anything because now our bishop is pinned. So instead, we have to think about the only other check that we have, which is knight f7. If the king were to come back to the white square, which seems like the worst square, we would have knight h6 double check. If the king went back to the corner, then our queen comes in and mate. If the king comes to g7, it seems like we'll be able to force the king back to the corner with queen f7 and then queen g8 mate. So far this is looking pretty promising. King has to come to g7. Again, our bishop cannot move, so there's no like bishop checkmate threat. Instead, we'll have to do something else. I wish I could give a check with the queen, but all these squares are taken. The knight can't give any more checks. So actually, I'm at a bit of a standstill here. So queen check, king to the corner. Do I have a move other than knight f7? I'm not quite seeing it, to be honest. So, when I'm stuck, I need to think about what pieces I'm neglecting, what assumptions I'm making, and then challenge those assumptions. So, my first assumption, of course, is that this is the first move. My next assumption is that I'm not using this bishop in the puzzle. And what else? I would say pause the video to follow along, but I'm taking so much pause myself, it's probably unnecessary. If I'm to say what I'm thinking here, I'm mostly just recalculating the thing that I just said didn't work, which was queen d5, king h8, knight f7, because I feel like I'm being stupid somehow. It feels like such an obvious way to go. But after king g7, I really am stuck. I have no more check. My bishop on d2 is hanging, and it will hang with check. I've got no way. I mean, it's also possible that I just win the bishop. That'd be kind of silly, though. But maybe that's just the answer. It is a full piece. But you want there to be something stronger. But once that bishop is gone, then we're going to have rook c2 and bishop here as well. So maybe it is just strongest. So that's going to be my answer unless I can find something else really quickly here, because I've already taken quite a lot of time on this single puzzle. Queen check. I don't see another acceptable first move. King here. Queen takes bishop. Okay. Wow. Yeah, I really got baited into thinking that this was going to be the move. But yeah, after king g7, I had 0 follow-up, so I had to doubt myself. Okay, ended up being right though. So moving on. Okay, first question is, what happens after rook takes h3? Is there a different move to consider? I don't really see a different move. Because we have some themes here of takes, takes, takes. King runs over, and then we give a queen check to force the king back into the corner, and then we lift the rook over. Seems like a standard mating idea. White has no threats against our king. White cannot block on the second rank because our queen will be on the square, also guarding this square. Oh, I guess I should have considered here. Can I just go queen h4 to transpose? Queen h4 takes, check, check, and then here. It's the same thing. Okay. That was sneaky, and shame on me for not considering that before I started making moves. But yeah, the premise here being that if takes here, here, king back, then this is going to be mate, unstoppable mate. So that's why after here, we just cut off the escape square, and when he takes, okay, the position's a little different because this pawn is here, but we can just do this and get that position that we were talking about. So it ends up transposing. Okay, huge themes here of moving this knight somewhere, and then there's a checkmate threat. Also, this is something that I can consider. So, okay, so let's just look at the move the knight and then checkmate ideas. The immediate obvious first move, check, fails. Of course, if black were to take, we would get what we want. Black will not take. Black will move the king here. And then I need to follow up. Not only do I not have anything to take with my knight, I don't see a follow-up against the king. Even if bishop here, seems like there's c6 to shut down the diagonal. So I need a better first move. Of course I can take the knight. But then maybe there's this move? Well, then we would at least have check. Here. Okay, so that maybe wins a piece. So we found a solution that seems to win material. Not very much material, considering like the gravity of the threat that we have. So let's just put that in the back of our mind that at the very least we can maybe win a piece. Other moves to consider, we didn't really consider this one. This check. This is a very powerful check because the king can't step over anymore because it's checkmate. The difference though is that now there might be some recapture that gives the king more squares or more defenders. So in the event that the queen comes in, check, queen blocks, bishop here is mate, so I don't think the queen will take. But if the pawn takes, actually if the pawn takes, we have bishop here. Isn't that mate? Because our queen's going to get to this square. So it's just knight b6 winning. So let's just, I think this is just checkmate, so I'll calculate one more time. We saw that if queen, we have queen followed by here. And we see that if king, we have mate, and if we see if by pawn, we have bishop, so that our queen can come to this square. And so no matter which square black's king runs to, we have here. I'm convinced. Alright, so that's 4. Okay, this seems to be another checkmate one. So clearly we don't want the knight here, because the knight keeps us from playing here, which would be mate, because when the king steps back, this is checkmate. So if we can get this knight out of the way in a forcing way, then we just win. Unfortunately, it seems if we go here, after some recapture, we lose our entry square for the queen. So this is not as appealing as maybe here. Here, we have 2 things to consider. Well, more than 2, but like if takes and if king moves. If the king moves, it seems that our queen can come in with check. There's also king moves to one of these squares. King moves here, then we'll have queen check. And then if king moves here, so here, I don't know if we have a check. But white doesn't really have a check either. And then queen here will be a double checkmate threat on both of these squares. And if rook comes up to guard both of those squares, then our knight can come back. And we're going to take the rook for mate. So it appears that king running away doesn't do very much. Like if here, check, here, knight here is mate, because this square is guarded. So now we just need to figure out what happens if pawn takes, and it seems like we just come here and here for mate. So this was the move that we calculated, then knight back, and then queen over. So lots of, as the theme says, a lot of basic checkmates. Maybe to get more instructive puzzles, because most puzzles in your games are not checkmates. Maybe in the future puzzles I can keep the same rating range, but be more selective with the themes, rather than selecting all themes. But for now, this will do. Happy I didn't miss any. I wasn't 100% certain on the one where I had to just win the bishop, because it looks so appealing to attack the king. But when you don't see a follow-up, then you have to play what you think is the best solution. And if you missed a follow-up, then you just learn. But the goal in the puzzles should never be to, I assume that this is working, and although I haven't figured it out, let's play it and let the puzzle guide us, because you want to have the solution in your head before you play the first move, just like you would in a game. Otherwise, you have to ask yourself what you're training in the puzzle. And that's why I felt a little bad about how I had this one where I had rook takes h3, and I completely didn't think about the king moving over. If you miss something like that in a game, it's not such a big deal, usually, because you just want a pawn for free, and at least you have a check follow-up and can, get rid of your rook with check. You're not going to lose material for that. But it's always a nasty shock in a game and in a puzzle when you expect your opponent to have an only move, and then they play something else. So definitely good to practice that train of thought in puzzles as well. So that's all for today, and we'll tackle some more tomorrow.